and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an elder law attorney. That's my day job. I work at Myrick O'Connell up the street in Westborough. But this is not about my day job. It's about Frank and Mary. If you've been to my presentations at the Southborough Senior Center, you've seen Frank and Mary, and you've heard me talk about the fact that their goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that means Southborough, that means they want to stay right here. So many of you have met my co-host, Doug Peck, whose day job is actually working with seniors at the organization called Seniors Helping Seniors. But the reason why he does that is his love is doing this kind of work. And he's also a Southborough guy. So he tends to find these great guests for us to talk to. Although this one we've had on before, and I know our guest, but for the holiday season, we really thought it would be great to have her back on. So Doug, whom do we have today?
Rebecca Wild-Wesley is rejoining us to talk about caregiving and during the holidays and at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and under these stressful conditions. She is what's known as an aging life care specialist. She has a company called the Aging Space, and she's been really helpful for me in my business and for clients that we've worked on together. And I thought she's was a good person to bring in towards one of our last shows of the year, because caregivers are under a lot of extra stress at this time of year anyway, and this year in particular.
And I think this is also
welcome, Rebecca.
And welcome, and Rebecca. And this is a great introduction, folks, for a lot of folks who have been going through these issues themselves or with their families. You know, some kids join with their parents. Oftentimes, you know, kind of the message here is having a real professional working with you through a lot of these issues can be really, really helpful. So I think that's also kind of the subtext here. Both of us have worked with Rebecca. She's terrific. She's close by. But that field, what she does is a field that's people like her are drawn to this field. You don't go to this field because you're going to make $1 jillion or because you're grumpy. You go in this field because you're a nice person. You want to be helpful. So Doug, I didn't mean to intervene. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. So Rebecca, welcome. So we talked a little bit, you know, prior to the show about what we wanted to talk about today. So, you know, let's just get right into it. So what have you been seeing out there so far with your clients around the whole COVID situation and the holidays coming up, and what might some of your thoughts be?
Sure. So I think we work a lot with family caregivers. And what we noticed very early on with family caregivers and their loved ones is that they ended up with a loved one who previously had been able to attend programming. They were able to get out and socialize with the rest of the family. They immediately went under that term lockdown. And they ended up at home, and most of our caregiving situations are for our clients who have dementia. And with the reduction to just one caregiver and maybe a paid person coming in and no external kinds of programming or outings, it really changed the environment for our clients as well as the people who are caring for them. So we spent a lot of effort on trying to help families. How do you enrich the environment for not only the recipient of care, but for the person who's providing the care, to be able to take away some of that monotony and some of the stress that goes with being isolated and shut down. And summertime was great because we encouraged everybody to get outside, get in the sun, enjoy the breezes, take walks. All of those things were good to do during COVID. I think what's really challenging now, we all live in the Northeast and it's getting cold out. And it's difficult to be able to anticipate that you can get out on a daily basis and be able to have some of the benefits of being outdoors. And so we're a little bit more housebound, and we're now facing holidays. We've just gotten through Thanksgiving, and many people have not been able to see their family. It's not the Thanksgivings they've had before, as if it wasn't enough to have someone have dementia in your family. Now you have dementia and social isolation. And so I think there's a lot of grief and a lot of sadness. And And as we age, we are giving up more things, and no one would have ever thought they would have given up the opportunity to be with their loved ones. And
Right.
that's what's happened with COVID. And so I think we want people to be hardy. And how do you anticipate Christmas? And can we make it a little better than Thanksgiving? You know, what lessons did families learn about what worked at Thanksgiving and what they'd like to see get better? And what do we do to make Christmas better for people? A long answer to one question.
Right.
But that's there are so many pieces to that question, you know. It's just, and there, you know, as you suggest, people are going through these whole variety of different situations, right? And now they've gone through a holiday. I think that was well summarized, where it was unusually hard. That's, if you know, even more than Christmas for many families. But Thanksgiving is the one where people that really get together, you know, and kind of relax, you know. So and you haven't felt that, you know. And I think, you know, I feel it with my clients. I know I have an older sister. I have an older sister who has memory problems, who and her husband had problems, and they ended up both moving to a nursing home. They both got COVID. He's now at UMass, you know, and on hospice. You know, it's none of this is, it's terrible. There's so many of these terrible stories right now. Terrible.
And I think what's difficult is that sometimes we think COVID is the issue, but many people won't have COVID, but they will have gone through all of the rest of the restrictions that have taken and sapped the joy out of life. I was listening on the radio last week to someone who said something, and it really stuck in my mind. And they said, love is now combined with COVID, that people who love each other, they bring COVID in. It was like love is a carrier for COVID. And I really thought about that we have to avoid being with those we love. And the CDC says you can't hug. All of our expressions of love have been physical and being present with each other. And with that has come great risk. We're not usually at risk necessarily from a stranger. We're more at risk from those we love. What a terrible message that is for people who, as you age, you know, your family gets smaller and you want to be with those people in your remaining years, however many years those are.
Yeah, that's very true. And you're right. It's still so new to us because we've never experienced that really before that I can remember. It's, you know, we've been a very healthy country for a long time, and this is really changing things. So, you know, we're talking on Zoom. We're using, you know, we're getting this recorded. It's going on cable show. So, what do you think? Does the technology help if people can use it? Have you seen it? You know, families at least are able to see each other and not just talk over the phone. And for me, that's how my family has, you know, did Thanksgiving this year. You know, it wasn't ideal, but at least everybody stayed healthy. You know, there's some, you know, that we just not willing to take a certain risk because it is a risk to even hug somebody that, you know, it's part of your family, but you just don't know what their recent past history has been.
Right. That's right. That's right. And I think I find it could be frustrating for somebody who is very tech savvy to encounter someone who says, "Oh, I'm just not good at that." The reality is I think many people who thought they weren't good at technology are going to need to do that. If they want to solve this, if they want to be having that feeling of being in their family, Zoom and Teams and Google Hangouts, all of these opportunities that are accessed through a tablet or a smartphone, we just got to get there. If you want to solve this problem, some of this has to be, you have to take it on yourself. And so that means personal growth. We have to do something we think we're not good at. So you got to measure that gain. And I would be that's my strongest encouragement for people, is to be able to overcome your I can't do that and figure out how to do it. And if families intergenerationally can help with that process, to be able to engage their grandparents and their parents, to be able to be more tech savvy, this will gain. It's not perfect. It's
Mhm.
not like being together, but it's close enough to be able to, kind of put a finger in the holes of the dike until we can get to be
Mhm.
back together again. It's
Mhm.
better than nothing.
Mhm. And I think and I would encourage people to, call their senior center, because I think there are senior centers that are working on this issue that may have people that can help you get online so you can do this. Um, because they're basically shut down. They've had to go through the same thing themselves and learn something entirely new. What
That's right.
I would, and I'm again passing an idea in front of you as another professional for caregivers is, we forget that caregiving is a team sport. It takes more than one person. So I think if you're a caregiver, you need, if you haven't done already, to find somebody you can really talk to, even if it's just one other person, maybe not even in your family, maybe just another caregiver, because I think you have to sort of express your frustrations to somebody, but also
Yes.
they have other ideas. Everybody's going through the same thing, but everybody has a unique situation,
Right.
you know? So you need to get other ideas from people, but they're experiencing the same feelings as you are.
I agree. And everybody's developed a new coping mechanism that they're happy to share. Just
Mhm.
like a conversation like this, the three of us had maybe one set of ideas. We talked together. All of a sudden, we're starting to create more ideas.
Mhm.
Conversation does that. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, I would say, I know in Southborough we have a really terrific senior center and an outreach person there, and I would say reach out a little bit. That's the other piece. I think, particularly for caregivers, is that they feel weakness if they reach out. That they try to be, their superpower is to do it all alone, and nowadays that's just not going to work, because there's too many things happening at the same time. So I
Yeah,
Well,
think
I think you
when
feel
you
like a
talk
bird.
about reaching out to Zoom, it's reaching out to another person to say, I'm getting to be at my wit's end. What are you doing? What can I do?
Right, exactly. And I think we don't want to be a burden. When we're a
Right.
caregiver, we don't want to burden somebody else. The reality is, when we think about our senior centers, these are people who love to help other people,
Mhm.
but you got
Right.
to ask, you have
You
to
have to
make
ask.
that call. And I
Yeah.
think people who are helpers want to be given the opportunity to help. This is it's kind of a reverse gift in a way.
Right.
I have
It
a need.
is.
I'm going to ask you to help me solve that. And now you've just made two people feel like they're able to fulfill their goals to make someone feel good.
Yeah.
I agree,
And
definitely.
those senior centers may, as you're suggesting, may not have the resources internally, but may be able to find those resources. I know that in Framingham, we had a show where we were talking to the volunteer coordinator, and that's what they've been consciously outreaching to volunteers who have tech skills, and to try to connect them to do exactly this, to try to connect them to folks who are at home
Mhm.
who need some of this, for whom this lack of tech skills and of some equipment is just really a huge obstacle, and it's helping them
Yeah.
overcome these obstacles.
So
Yeah.
I think that the phone is still a great option. And I think when we think about intergenerationally families who might not get to be in the same space, even if you haven't mastered the screen sharing in 2 weeks, grandkids can call grandparents, and we're promoting in one of our newsletters with our business StoryCorps, using the StoryCorps app to be able to ask questions of the senior who's in your family, and to be able to record that information. Kids are so savvy. Kids have
Yeah.
smartphones. They'll be able
That's
to
a great
record it.
idea.
There are some really nice opportunities to be able to do an interview, to call a
Yeah.
grandparent and ask them, and not just the grandparent who has dementia, but the caregiving grandparent. And you make a date on the phone, because hopefully this is a whole family trying to think about ways to enrich the life of everyone in the family. Those kids are
Right.
going to remember that. The senior will remember that. I
Mhm.
think opportunities to be able to share a family recipe, maybe everybody makes the same recipe and they all live in a different place, but
Yeah.
sharing your tips. And in our family, we don't write down the family recipe, because that's the way the kids will call, and that's what we used to do to our parents. How is it you
Yeah.
make that meatloaf again, and what about the special So that's what we did at Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
we were all on the phone talking to each other, trying to remember favorite family recipes that linked our now past parents with our kids, and it goes through us. And I think that's what families can do this on the phone. Just make a
Right.
date, have a phone date, to be able to, don't wait until you think to call someone. You got to make it an appointment on the calendar, make it a commitment.
Right.
Yeah.
I suppose that's
It's
interesting.
harder.
That's an interesting point too. Just make it a commitment. Once it's on the calendar, I know for myself, if it's not on the calendar, it could be a year later. Like,
Right.
how come we never got together? But once it's on the calendar, it just kind of happens.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right.
And what I found is that sometimes it's hard to call people, particularly older people in the evening. You used to get done work at 6, you'd have dinner and it'd be 8 o'clock before you can make a phone call. And it's oftentimes too late. Well, now, I talk to my son at lunchtime because I know he's eating lunch. I'm eating lunch. I'll give him a call or he'll call me.
Right.
And it's a much different conversation when you have it when, sort of in the middle of the day. It sort of peps me up that I'm able to talk to somebody else. And I think that's true for somebody even with dementia. They're more aware in the late morning or early afternoon rather than in the evening. It's a good time to get a hold of them. You're probably at home, so why not make a lunch date like that? I like that whole idea of sort of making a date. It's a really good idea and healthy for everybody. It is.
So I think one of the challenges also that caregivers are faced with, and we're specifically addressing, I know care managers is that there are a couple of issues. What happens if I get sick? What's going to happen? We worry about our loved one who's the care recipient, but caregivers, what happens if I ... It doesn't have to be about COVID. It could be, I haven't been able to walk every day, so I'm not as healthy as I was. I might have had a fall and broken my arm. I tell you, breaking your arm is almost worse than breaking a leg.
Yeah.
When you don't have one arm, you can't do a lot. So helping people to think through keeping yourself healthy as a caregiver to be able to hopefully prevent something from happening and keeping you from your role. Because I often think of the caregiver and the client. When that caregiver goes down, client's going right on top of them. They're not going to be able to maintain the work of being able to take two people and keep them healthy and where they are. And I think one of the other things that's happening a lot with COVID, people are still looking at months. This is not going away just because a vaccine is right on the threshold. We have months still. And I know people they're postponing surgeries. They're perhaps when someone's in the emergency room, do we have them go in the hospital or not? Do they go to a nursing home or rehab or not? Do they come home? Will we be able to get care? There's so many decisions. Should I move mom home because I'm not working now? I can take care of her. There are a huge number of decisions, and people at your senior center might be able to talk you through this, but often it takes someone who's got a high level of integration in all the systems to be able to understand where is it safe, what are the risks, what are the benefits, to be able to think that through. And it's hard to think that through on your own. There's no one to talk to except the wall. And I think aging professionals are really well versed in having a good conversation with somebody. Let's lay our cards on the table. Let's figure out what your options are, help you to narrow it down so you've thought it through. You've had a pre-thought, and maybe you'll never need that, but it doesn't hurt to make a plan and then not need it. It's way worse to try to make a plan when the caregiver just got sick and haven't thought through what ifs, all of the what ifs.
Because your job is to kind of be almost the opposite of the person who is now facing one of these problems for the first time and saying, oh, like where do you even start?
Right.
And one of the things that I think really impedes people in doing that stuff is they think they should know, that they feel like they're dummies because they don't know, as opposed to just saying when I talk to folks, or they'll ask me and I'll say, well, don't ask me, don't ask me, but I can solve a set of problems for you, right? If you've got financial restructuring that you've got to do, if you've got to be dealing with something, I can deal with that, right? but I'm not prepared, you know, to be, and I've never had to spend the time looking at the totality of those problems over and over again. And that's the key, is that you need to have somebody who's doing it over and over again. Because as you said at the beginning, there are all these variations. Or as Doug, as you had said, you know, everybody's got this unique situation. And of course it's unique to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it may be unique to a lot of people. So you really need somebody who's spent a lot of time just seeing those kinds of situations so they can help them out of that box. That's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the added complexity now of COVID. It really is, you know, and I think people should really think about bringing in a professional, just like they would bring in a professional lawyer or a doctor, someone that has the big picture, because, you know, most people don't even know the difference between what's a skilled nursing facility, what does long-term rehab mean, what does short-term rehab mean, you know? So, I mean, the world for seniors is changing, and I think you need somebody. I would recommend, obviously I recommend Rebecca, but it's the Aging Life Care Association. If you Google that, it will give you can go and look up everybody in your area, and, you know, they're licensed professionals, and they can work with you over the phone now. They've shifted their business model like everybody else has. And it's worth it to have somebody help you think this through. It's, you know, who's done it time and time again with people. Like you said, Arthur, they've seen the bigger picture that most people can't see, and to at least begin thinking about it before there is a crisis, because the crisis will come quickly.
Right. And in terms of, if you need services, it's handy to have somebody who kind of knows kind of who the players are in the area, so they can make a recommendation, you know, because there are a ton of home care places. There are a lot of skilled nursing things. There are a ton. You have no idea. And do you really want to be, you know, how do you shop that exactly? Especially now, because you can't walk into any place.
Right.
You don't want to come to your house, you know. So to be able to kind of vet that before you start, right? Who's really available in your area, and once again, based on track record, who are the people you feel like you can rely on, you know?
And even to make a decision about, is it time to go into a long-term care facility? You know, many of them are open. They are accepting new people coming in, but, you know, you need to have the expertise to know which is better for you. What are you really looking for? What do you need? And is this going to, you know, do the trick for you? So I think as a caregiver, unfortunately, it is part of your responsibility to think ahead, to think about the what ifs, because the situation is going to change, and, you know, you need to be prepared for it, you know, as best you can. So
Rebecca, good luck going through the next couple of months. I know this must have been, as Doug has said, the same thing, you know, dealing with his work at Seniors Helping Seniors. You know, it's just been intense, and it's been so different from everything else, right?
It's been a challenging year for everybody, I think.
Yeah. And the only good news is, while it's not soon, you know, that the vaccine is here, at least, you know, the vaccine it's somebody's producing them now, you know, and the science indicates that it works. And so you just have to survive this. We have to survive this. Survive this holiday, you know, as you said at the beginning, Doug, it's how do you figure out this holiday? And it isn't like the ones that have been before. And hopefully it's going to be very different next year, you know?
Yeah.
And you survive this one.
Caregivers need to take care of themselves. You know, that's what Rebecca's message is, I think. Which, if you don't, then everything does just begin to fall apart.
Everything falls. Right. And if you're having a problem, call Rebecca or call Doug. Don't call me for that problem. I'm going to tell you to call them. All right. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for this. It's great having you back, and especially this time of year. I think that because a lot of people are faced with a million of these kinds of problems, and trying to figure it out. And in the months ahead is just really terrific. And Doug, I think it's a great idea to bring Rebecca back. you know. But I
Oh,
think
thanks. It was good to see her again as well. I haven't seen her in person for a
No,
while
it's
now.
been a long
but,
time for
you know,
both.
I would, my last word for seniors is there are a lot of people out there.
I think she's living in a Swiss chalet someplace.
Yeah, I
I
know.
know.
It's great. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much. Doug, thank you so much. Folks,
You're welcome.
you know, the message here, there are a lot of people that really can help you in these situations.
Yes,
You just have to reach out. You may want
just
to
have
talk
to reach
to
out.
Rebecca. You may want to
Yeah.
talk to Doug, right? Call the
Mhm.
senior center. The bottom line, don't get into this hole that because you're stuck in the house, therefore there's nobody that you can reach out to.
That's
talk.
right.
Right,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Right, especially during this holiday season. So thank you both. Folks,
Okay.
thank you very much for watching this installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. This is our last show for the year, so happy holidays. We'll
Yes.
see you all in January. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.